Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Heil, and I'd like to welcome you to Protected Tomorrows. Our webinar today is entitled Retiring for Three Workshop. And now I'd like to introduce the president and founder of Protected Tomorrows, Anne Ehlert.
Hello, everyone. And here we are in our class about retiring. And that's something people all look forward to. But those of us who have a family member with special needs, we're special because we have to do a lot of unique planning that's over and above what the average person needs to do. So we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to get started right away. And if you have seen any of the other classes, those were the predecessors to this class. So we did a nice overview of the whole program and the things you have to be thinking about. We did one about benefits. We did one about the legal planning you need to do, and we did one about the ABLE Act. So here we are. We've gotten you through all those different pieces, and now we're going to be talking about retiring and what you have to do different in your retirement plan. Just to remind you that we're going to have a follow-up live session that talks about all the things we talked about here, where we're answering your questions. So as we're going through the class and you have your own questions, please make sure to jot them down. And I'm going to also give you homework at the end of the class to email me. So those of you who have not participated in the other classes, I've already introduced my sister to you. That's Marcia. She had cerebral palsy from birth. And she is my purpose. She's the reason I do what I do. She is no longer with us. She passed away just before the age of 40. She had a seizure in her sleep, couldn't turn over, and she suffocated. It was a very difficult time for my family, as you can imagine. But all of her life up to that point were my lessons about what's really important in life. She taught me, to enjoy the day, to appreciate what we have, to look for opportunities of doing things the best we can, because it's what she always wanted to do, as well as to be outspoken about what I wanted in my life and what she wanted in her life. So she made a difference. She also taught me what was important to my parents, and my parents learned the hard way. So did I with my son. But over time, if there's someone else that can hold your hand through some of the things you need to do, and someone else who can give you some guidance, it makes it so much easier. So when I started with my parents, they didn't have that. And so I learned with them. I heard after she passed away also about the things that were really important to them. So I hope I get to use those things that I learned and the tools that I use to help my parents, as well as thousands of families over the last 30 years, to share it with you and help you plan your own retirement. So the other thing I know is people come into my office and they're planning for their son or daughter or brother or sister or even their parents sometimes. And they come in and they're like this, and they have their box of paper, and we're going to talk about that, right? And then I started asking questions about the person that we're planning for. And then I kind of back up a little bit and say, okay, now let's talk about you, mom and dad. Let's pretend it's mom and dad. And I said, tell me about you. And they go from this to this, because what happens is we're so used to being caregivers and we're worried about that person. But I will tell you, this class is about parents. You need to be okay, right? You need to have your own retirement. My parents always didn't think that way, and they didn't plan that way. And so we're always doing things at the last minute, and I had to go run and learn things that they need to do, whereas now I know it. And so now I'm going to share it with you. And I want you deserve a full life. You deserve retirement. You deserve happiness, just like your child does. So up to these classes, we've talked about what does your child want, and now we're going to bring you into the picture. So when we go through this 8-step process, we've talked about what you want for your child, and we talked about the planning you have to do for them, and we've talked about the legal planning you have to do for them, where we talked about government benefits, all those things, right? And documenting your child's life. And now we're going to bring you into the picture, because if you are not okay, they won't be okay. Okay, that's the rule of today, is if you're not okay, they're not going to be okay. And so my mission is to make sure that your child has a safe and fulfilling life, you are a big part of that. So we're going to talk about the planning that you need to do, and we're going to break it up into a couple of steps. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the tools we're going to use today. One is our website. So I'm going to be talking about things that are on our website if you need to refer back to them. Okay. 2, and this is recorded. So you're also going to be able to look at this on the program that you're participating in to be able to look at this again, I'm sure. Secondly, we have a family membership community where a lot of the tools that we use for some calculations you might want to do are available to you as well. Okay. Okay. So 2 tools. And we're going to talk about some other things that are things that you're going to want to do, and they're pretty much standard things that you can get anywhere. So first, we're going to talk about you because we said that's what we're going to do today. So we're talking about retirement. So most people kind of think about retirement from perspective of when am I going to quit working and when do I take Social Security, right? They think about it from those 2 things. When is the company going to offer me a package, or when am I just tired and don't want to work anymore? Or when do I decided that I want to do something else with my life? All those things, reasons retire. But then now we are not retiring just for ourselves. We have to incorporate our retirement. We have to incorporate feeding into that another person or persons who have a disability to make sure we can financially provide for them as well. And then beyond our life, we have this other stage of our life that we are not here, and it's their life, it's their retirement. So retiring for 3 is ourselves, if we're a couple, and this other person who's depending upon us emotionally, financially, and they get their happiness from a lot of things we provide, but we have to make sure that that is funded as well. So we have a little different retirement here. I also want you to think about, I ask people sometimes to think about a couple of things. So the top is before the class and after, and the bottom is after the class. So what do you think right now about, I'll ask you some questions. If you're a couple, and if you're not, for yourself, is dad still working? Yes or no? Mom still working? Yes or no? What age do we think dad will retire? And what age do we think mom will retire? And if you're single and you're the dad or the mom, just pick that bucket, okay? I'm just a mom, single mom. Who has the health insurance, dad or mom? Or is your child depending upon Medicaid, or are they already on they on Medicare already because they have gotten SSDI in their own record? And then now you kind of know the age you think you're going to retire. So what age does dad think he's going to take Social Security? What age is mom going to take Social Security? You might change your mind. And I will tell you this about your planning. If you go online and say, I want to find a Social Security analyzer, or you're a financial advisor who's done that for you, you probably want to look at it again, because those programs don't take into account that you have a third person, that Social Security, their Social Security and their benefits are going to be impacted when you take yours. And most people don't realize that. So we're going to talk about that. It's really important. We talked about it in the benefit class that we did earlier. It was the second class, and that was important, but now we're going to put it into some concept for you. Okay, so those are the rules of this first half. Later on after the class, I'm going to ask you these questions again of now, when do you think you're going to retire? And when do you think you're going to take your Social Security? And the Social Security has a lot to do with what we're going to decide here. So the first question I'm going to ask you, and this is not a financial planning class, but it kind of is. Okay. Have you done that planning? Have you thought about all the things you need to do in order to make sure you're okay? And so a couple of things you should be doing is, first, go on to socialsecurity.gov and get your Social Security report. Now, they used to send it to you automatically, but they don't anymore. And so you can go on to socialsecurity.gov and pull up, you open an account for yourself with your Social Security number. It's pretty secure. You put in passwords. You have to put in indicators to make sure it's secure for you. And it will give you a report. And it's going to tell you a couple of things. And here's an example. It's going to tell you about your retirement. So this particular person, their full retirement was age 67. Everybody's is a little different depending on how old you are. Some people at 66 and 6 months, it's different. So at age 67, this person would be able to be eligible. They've paid in enough to get $28.45 a month. But at age 70, they'd get $3,500 a month. But if they take it early at 62, they're going to get $2,000 a month. That's a big difference, right? Okay. The age 67 number is a really important number, so I want you to look at that. $28.45. Then there's a disability number. So it's important for everybody, if you're younger and you're still working, 2860 is what this person has paid into to get a disability record of themselves. So if I became disabled, that would be the number I could apply for, right? Because I paid in. Then there's family survivors. So if you pass away or retire or become disabled, those are the numbers that your family can get on your record. No, people don't realize that it's not just for them, it's for their whole family. And there's two numbers I want to draw your attention to. One says your child on the top of those four numbers. And then the last one says family benefits cannot be more than 5,004. So that 5,004 is the bulk money that this person could have their benefit paying to someone. And the 2145 is the amount that if they die, become disabled, or retire, that their child at some point might become eligible for. And that numbers comes from, it's tied to the age 67 amount for this person. So when I retire, my child who has a disability and had it before the age of 22 and has, could get a benefit that is equal to 1/2 of my age 67 benefit. And when I die, equal to 75% of my disability benefit, my retirement benefit at age 67. So when I retire, they'll get half of it, of my 67 benefit. Even if I retire at 62, they will get half of my age 67 benefit. And when I die, they will get 75% of my 67 benefit. Okay, important things to remember. Now, here's another example, because those numbers aren't the same for everybody. This is a person who made less, had a different kind of career, and they have a 67 benefit of 1,800, a 70 benefit of 2,200, and an age 62 benefit of 1,197. And then you will see the family's maximum is 3,116, and the child's benefit is 1,257. Remember, child means a minor or a disabled adult child who has a disability before the age of 22. Okay, so I'm going to assume we all kind of fall into that category based upon this group that's listening. Right? So that was the first thing you need to get, because we're going to need those numbers. The second thing we're going to need is your cash flow, right? So what do you need? You're looking at your retirement plan. How much is coming in and how much is going out? How many know that? That's a key part. If you're just working with a financial planner who's never done this for you, you should know this. Don't just look at your credit card and say, wow, this is how much I spent in a month and I know, what my house costs. Do the work. Okay, this is where people fail at understanding it. So understand what's coming in. What are you making? So you see the first column says current and the second column says retirement. So the left-hand column says, what am I making? And then the right-hand column says, what is my Social Security going to be? So remember, we got those reports. We want to know. Okay, and then right up on the top of retirement, what age you think you're going to retire, and tie that Social Security to it. And then you go through, what's my house bills going to be? What are my utility bills going to be? What is my transportation costs going to be? What are my insurance bills? What's it going to cost to go out now? What do I spend? What do I spend in food? And the top second page on the top, I'm talking about today. What am I spending on my child's care? The PWD future care is not something you will see in average cash flows. That's something, how much are we spending on this child that has a disability, separate from the money that we spend for ourselves. Okay, so we list that. And then we also talk about, when we're still working, how much am I putting into my 401ks, into my IRAs, how much I pay in federal tax, and how much I'm paying into the Medicare and Social Security out of my paycheck, which on your paycheck will show up as FICA. Okay. Then we go to the right-hand column of this page and we say, what's it going to look like when I retire? And you go through the whole exercise and you say, okay, will my house be paid off? Will I still have a mortgage? Am I paying rent? Have utility? Now, don't worry about inflation, what it's going to cost later. I want to know how it compares to today. So if I looked at all of your expenses and I said, wow, with all the bills you pay, you need $5,000 a month to live. That's a number. Now I go into retirement and say, what do I think? Somebody says, well, isn't it 75% of what you earn or live on? I don't know. Everybody's different. But I do know this. If you look at your cash flow, you won't be putting money into 401ks anymore. You're not working, or IRAs. You won't be paying that Medicare/Social Security bucket anymore because you're not working. So when you go through this exercise, you can see why credit cards are really important. If you just take what you're putting into the credit card, don't double count it. What is that? Is it part of it food? Is part of it clothes? Is part of it travel? Is part of it going out? So when I get all done, I'll kind of have a sense of how much do I need in retirement. Okay, it's part of what the financial planning process is all about. But you're different, and you have to identify that PWD, future care, because in our retirement, if you have a child with a disability and you're helping, I don't even care if they're getting a home-based money, if they're getting, some kind of other Social Security themselves. What are you spending over and above that? Because those benefits aren't paying for their clothes and taking them on a vacation and a dentist. It's not paying for those things, right? Okay. So you got this is the hardest exercise, this one, because people don't like to do this. We don't like to go to the nitty gritty. I do not know a way to be successful in retirement for us or our child unless I do this exercise. So somebody comes to me and says, well, help me do this. So I have to help you. I need you to do the work. Okay. I need you to get your Social Security record. I need you to do this. Then the third thing I need you to do is this. Okay. So, hey, you got to know what you got, right? How are you going to figure out how long your money is going to last? Just go off the phone with somebody. Very successful person, very successful. But he couldn't tell me what he lived on. And he couldn't tell me really on one page what he had. He could list off what he did. He could list off what he made. But when I started to ask that other previous page, when I said, okay, how much do you think you spend on housing? How much? He didn't know, even though he was kind of in the financial industry in some capacity. He had never done this for himself. He had done a lot of insurance things for clients, but never this. So now, not that many people can tell me if I say, what's your net worth? They can't tell me. What is it? So the left-hand side of this page is your assets, your home, your bank accounts, your cars, your jewelry, your investments, your retirement accounts and your non-retirement investments, your other real estate you might have, any business holdings you have. What is it worth? Then you say, okay. On the right side, you say, what's my mortgage? What are the terms of my mortgage? So I have it right in front of me. Do I have any home equity loans? Do I have any outstanding credit cards? Not the things you pay off all the time, because that's just your cash flow. But do I have car loans? Do I have credit card loans? Do I have student loans that I'm still responsible for a child? So let's say I total up all my assets, and with my house and my assets, it's $1 million. I'm picking a number that's just easy. And if my debt is $300,000, I'm worth $700,000. Okay. Now, I'm going to add to that the cash value of my life insurance, because I might have a whole life policy that has cash in it. So I can add that to it too. So now I know what I'm worth. I want to understand that, because if I'm going to do that when I go back on the previous page and say, I'm retired, how much is coming in from my investments and how much is coming from my Social Security? What is it that's coming from your investments? So if you say, I've got of that million, 400,000 of his investments, a safe rule of thumb is of 400,000. Take 4% of it a year, assuming it's getting some return, but assuming the market goes down, use 4%. So what do I think my portfolio could give me? Because while we're working, this is a hard part about this whole process, right? While I'm working, I know what I got. I'm counting on me. I'm counting on my husband to produce some money that's taking care of me, my husband, the three, and my child, who's still going to be with me. And my other two, I got off to college and they have careers. And do they come home for money and to come home for love? Yes, they do. But am I going to have to provide for them for the rest of their life? No. Okay. Now, do I want to leave them something? Yes. But do I have to give them something so they'll be okay? Just depends on what they're doing, right? This is the bucket that tells us what we have to draw it down on, right? Now, the other things I want to know in this whole big picture of things is my life insurance. I want to know what kind of life insurance I have. Is it whole life? Is it term? Because if it's term insurance, it's going to last a period of time. But later on, when I say how much is going to be available for when we pass away, it's not term, because the term only lasts for a period of time. And if I die before that, it's gone, right? So whole life or variable life or universal life probably will be there. Term insurance will not be. Term insurance is for paying off our mortgage, taking care of my salary when I die for the time till I retire. So I want that on there. So one other piece we want on this page, your long-term care insurance. Do you have it? What's that? That's the insurance that pays somebody to take care of me when I get older and I can't take care of myself. The insurance is going to pay for my assisted living and for nursing home if I need it. Why do I care about that? Well, if we're counting on the assets that we have to provide for us and someone else, so our retirement is beyond us because we're doing our lifetime and it's somebody else's lifetime, I don't want my assets eaten up with my care costs. Do I have enough to pay for me and my spouse and my child and care for us, my husband and I? Or is it going to eat up the money? And so when I pass away, I didn't take care of that third retirement. Okay. So each of these pieces fits into this retiring for three. If you haven't done this, it's a really important piece. The last thing I want to know, because we went on that cash flow, I keep going back to pages. We come back here and we say, what's my salary? What's my income? What's Social Security? What are the incomes? Other income source could be a pension, right? So if I have a pension, I have to know about it. I have to know how much is it going to give me. I probably have to pick how to take it. So I might have to say, I'm going to take all of it and my spouse will get none if I die, or I'm going to take half, I'm going to take a little less so my spouse gets half, or there's no option for my spouse to get any. Those are important pieces of what's going to be left when I die, right? And then I want to know something else about my pension. I want to know, with that pension pay for three, we don't usually see that very often, but we do. So we see it on teachers' pensions, we see it on state police pensions, we see it on federal pensions that says, if I have a disabled child, I can take my pension, and when I pass away, it goes to my spouse. And when my spouse passes away, a part of it goes to my child. That's an important piece to know, right? Because if some of my money is used up, but when I get sick, my pension will continue to go on to my child. Do you want to know that? But I got to know the details of that because those pension rules change. So this is one of those things you always got to pay attention to. So the teacher's retirement system in the state I live in pays to the third person, the child with a disability, if I pick the right thing. So there's a survivor benefit. But once they change the rules now so that if they are not on your tax return as a dependent when you pass away, they won't get it. Well, if they're living in a residential facility, you can't take them as a dependent anymore. So therefore they're not on your tax return, therefore they won't get that benefit. So you might include it, but you might do another analysis to say, well, what if they don't get it? Okay, all right. But you got to find out. The key here is find out if it even offers it. A lot of pensions, corporate pensions don't, okay? All right. So now you know about you. So next thing you have to know, your child, right? So you have to know this so you can feed it back into yours. So what do we have to know about your child? A, if we're planning for three, we have to know what it costs for them to live. What are their medical bills? We've talked about this a little bit in other classes. You know, what's their fund going to look like? What's their education look like? So just like you did a cash flow for yourself, we're doing it for your child. We're saying what's coming in and what's going out and what are we going to be short? Okay. So if their income is coming in and they're, they got Medicaid that's paying care, let's say they got a home-based support of some type or waiver money that's coming in, but it's going out for care. Okay. But are they totally funded? And if they're short, that has to go back under that PWD future care piece in your cash flow. So I only do this exercise so that I get an understanding of, do I have enough to pay for three? So when I get through this exercise, I can do this calculation. Now, one of the tools that we have online is a calculator to say, this is what the cash flow looks like. This is how much is coming in. This is how much is going out for my child, actually doing that cash flow, just like we did for you. And this will calculate, this is how much you're going to have during your retirement years. And this is how much you're going to have when your child passes away. And if people want access to this, we can give them access to this. If you attended the session and send us an email, we'll send you a code, right? So we did a basic financial plan for ourselves. We incorporated that dollar amount we need for our child. 2, we did the cash flow for your child. And I can't go through every nuance of detail here because we would be here together for a day. So I'm going to give you the steps, okay? So 3 is the government. Government has a big part. And the government it's going to help us decide how we take our Social Security. All of this has come back to that cash flow that we had in the beginning. All right. So let's talk about this. Now, we already went through this, but I'm going to just tie it back to what we've done. And if you haven't watched the benefit class and you want to understand the basics of benefits again, go back and watch the benefit class. All right. And these classes would be all day if I kept covering every detail, but I want to have you know where you can get the access to benefits. Okay. So this is the rules for this particular family that I'm going to use. The age 67 benefit was $2,600 a month. The child's benefit or disabled child's benefit, the maximum they can get is $1,800 a month. And the family benefits is $4,400 a month. Those are the kind of the numbers that I'm using for this exercise. So in this particular case, as you remember the class, that when a person turns 18, a person with a disability turns 18, in today's 2021 numbers, they will get $794 a month of SSI and they'll get Medicaid. Okay. We kind of all know that. That's what they get. And if it's not 2021, they're going to get a little more. But if it's 2041, they're probably still getting a little more. I will tell you there's lots of legislation on the table to change all of this stuff to make it not $2,000, but a bigger number that they can have in their name, and to make them allowed to earn a little more, and just a lot of different rules that are probably going to change. And pay attention, because there's some legislation on the table in regard to that. And we have not seen those kind of proposals to make change in a very, very long time. So once those occur, we will again have classes to show you how that changes in regard to your child. Okay. But in regard to us, this is all still the same. So when the parents retire and dad took $2,600, and we said mom didn't work, and so mom's going to get half of dad's. Now, people always say, well, if mom's going to get half of dad's, does dad only get half? No, dad gets 100% of his amount, his $2,600, and mom gets half of his, which is $1,300. So they're paying $3,900 out. And we said the maximum from this dad's record that can be paid out was the $4,400. So we're just doing a real simple calculation here. Okay. So what happened is there was only $500 left out of dad's record if mom and dad depended upon dad's record. So we're going to give the child that $500, and they lower it because of the SSI max is $794. The most they can give the child is $294 because it's getting money from another bucket. All right. Then 2 years later, that's why it's really important for your child to get into that top left quadrant. They're going to get Medicare. Now, this is what happens, and this is why your retirement planning. So let's go again. Okay. Child's getting their benefit. When a parent retires and takes Social Security, they get Social Security of their own. The child gets Social Security. And 2 years later, they get Medicare. That's what's really important for our child if they haven't worked enough to get their own work record, or if their Medicaid isn't paying the bills. Okay. So why is it so important that we get our child into Medicare? Maybe they're only on Medicaid, or probably more likely they're on one of the parents' health insurance plans, because it could stay on it past 26 and they're still on it. So we're counting on that all along through our work years. And all of a sudden, I'm going to make the assumption, because we use dad here as getting his benefit, dad's going to retire. And dad is going to retire, we said at 67. At 67, he's done. Well, if he retires at 67 and mom is only going to get her Social Security because she didn't have a work record, if mom is going to take her Social Security when she's also 67, because we assume they're both the same age, then what happens? Because the child goes into Social Security when the dad retires, and his health insurance goes away. And when did we say the child goes into Medicare? 2 years later. So for 2 years, when you've had the child on your health insurance, 2 years after that is when the child goes on Medicare, and they keep their Medicaid as a supplement. Okay. Well, that's a 2-year time frame that maybe Medicaid isn't enough. And so there's a lot of planning here. So in this particular situation, we didn't Dad could have kept working and taken his Social Security early. But if Dad takes his Social Security and is still working, he probably won't get much of his Social Security because he's making too much, right? You can only make so much and get your Social Security, all of it. But maybe in some situations, mom had some kind of a work record. And this is, sometimes people look at it and say, mom's going to be a stay-at-home mom. And sometimes they say, you know what, you ought to make enough to get a little teeny Social Security record. Fine. Maybe we don't care about the Social Security money, but we care about that Medicare record. So let's say mom decides she worked and she only had a really small Social Security record. That's all. She's not going to get much. Maybe she takes her own at age 62 or 63. She's certainly in this situation, if mom had her own work record and dad's going to take it, retire at 67, I would want mom to take hers at 65. Because if mom takes her Social Security at 65, I don't care if it's only $100 a month. She's in the system, and then her child's in the system. And the child's going to get 1/2 of her age 67 benefit, even though she started at 65. The child's eligible for 1/2 of her 67 benefit. Okay, clear? And then 2 years after that, the child can go on Medicare. Woo! And that would be when dad is 67. Mom was 65 when she started her own. She's getting a small amount. Mom can't go on dad's unless dad's in it. Dad takes 67, he's going to retire. Child's already been eligible into the system for Medicare 2 years before. Dad retires, he gets his 67. Mom's going to bump up part to dad, so she's going to get 1/2 of dad's, but she keeps her own, and it just brings her up to dad's amount. So it all doesn't come out of dad's bucket. Everybody's got their bucket, dad's bucket, mom's bucket. So when mom took her own, when she flips to dad's 1/2, when he starts his, she'll keep her, let's say it was 100 a month, and then she'll get some of dad's, and then the child's eligible, and child will be eligible for more than 100 a month. That the other one we had 500, maybe he's eligible for 600 a month now because mom was taking something out of hers. So how important is it that you understand each parent's record and you understand it early rather than waiting until the last minute? You say, okay, we're going to retire now. And then you go, oh, we got to wait 2 years. Okay. So little nuances that are important. Okay. All right. So when the parents pass away, remember, they both pass away. In this situation, the child's amount goes up to, the SSA amount goes up to 1,800 because that was the max. So your Social Security that you take makes, when you take it, makes you put your child into that bucket of the left-hand quadrant. When they get into the left-hand quadrant, they become eligible for Medicare. So all of a sudden, when mom and dad retire, and it's not even retiring, because if mom was a part-time worker and has Social Security, but she didn't make enough to get over the Social Security record, she might get all of her Social Security and also get this benefit. So understanding your benefits and understanding can you take Social Security early and still be working, how's that all work for you? Sounds complicated. It starts with getting your own Social Security record. That's a simple part, right? What's your record look like? Whose is higher? If you're single, it's easier, almost, right? But you don't have the second person who could take a benefit earlier if you're working and you're the breadwinner of the family. So understanding that is a key component to your planning. Maybe your child is on all Medicaid benefits and we don't care about this. If their doctor provides everything they need, maybe we don't care, and that's the only benefit we care about, and that's acceptable. Everybody's situation's different. We have to find out a lot. We have to find out who are the doctors that cover your child's care, what kind of drugs are they on. If they only had a Medicaid doc, then they go into Medicare, we need to say, is Medicaid sufficient? Because Medicaid's what's going to pay the drugs. But the drugs have to be sometimes in some states prescribed by a Medicaid doctor. And if your doctor's only on Medicare, how do you get that? So it's not as simple as sitting in an hour class here, but it is important. I'm trying to get you to your first step to say, wow, this is not like we thought. And that's not what we were told. Or it's not what we did in the calculator. It didn't tell us any of this, right? Or our financial advisor told us we had enough money, but we kind of left this whole piece out. Okay. So you can't do this in a vacuum because you need to put this third person into your retirement plan. Okay. So if you look at this circle and you draw a circle for yourself, put your numbers into the different buckets and say what makes sense for us, because everybody's different. Okay. So what are you going to need to figure all this out? So let's talk about it. One, you need to know in the left-hand corner, and I'm doing it based on the steps we have in our process. You need to know, I'm trying to take it from easy to hard, what you have and what you owe. Okay. So when I do a retirement plan for somebody, I look at what do they have and what do they owe. And I look at their cash flow. I look at their cash flow and I say how long, and their cash flow includes step 2, which was figuring out what your child needs. Okay. So if I said, I'm going to have to fund for my son $1,000 a month, that's what I have to help pay. So I've got a cash flow of $5,000 a month for my husband and I, but I need another $1,000 for my child. So I really need $6,000, and my pot of money has to produce that. Okay. So I look at my assets and liability. I figure out what I need. I figure out step number 2, where I figure out what my child. So now I know I have my cash flow. Now I do my net worth and say, how much do I have? And how much do I have invested? Because that pot of money and my pension and my Social Security and whatever investments I can draw down on my portfolio safely for the rest of our life, will it produce enough to pay for myself, my spouse, and my child or children? I have people with several children with disabilities. They have to continue to fund. Or perhaps they're setting up a housing program and they're saying it's not $1,000 a month anymore. We're going to buy a townhouse and have our children in that house or townhouse. And now it's not $1,000 a month for them. Maybe it's $3,000 a month. Okay. And then we say that $3,000 a month is coming from not just what our children need now, but the amount we have to leave. So we have to fund that other house. Or so we go into that stage 3, which is looking at what do I have? What does my child need? And what has to be left? So when I'm looking at my estate plan, sometimes I'm doing a retirement plan for somebody. If they don't have a child with a disability, they don't care if it's drawn down upon. They don't care when they pass away, they don't have as much. So they just say whatever's left is for my children. They'll get it, they'll get it. But if I have a child with disability, I have to be a little more careful about having long-term care insurance. I have to be a little more careful about understanding what their need is so that I can leave it. And if I only have enough left for them, am I okay with splitting it that way? Am I okay with my child getting a part and my other children getting nothing? So it all fits together. So I always start with get your Social Security statements. You'll hear me say that a lot. 2, get your net worth statement. Do your cash flow, do your child's cash flow, and then calculate out the rest. So Social Security statement for you and your spouse or yours. Do your net worth statement. What do you have? What do you owe? Your cash flow, what's coming in, what's going out, and what's it going to look like in retirement. And then your child's cash flow needs. I'm going to feed my child's cash flow needs into my cash flow and into my retirement plan. So my cash flow drives how much I need. So my cash flow drives how much I need, and my portfolio is going to fill the bucket. But my cash flow has to incorporate my child. And then I look at all of that and say, but what about my child's healthcare needs? And then I can look at the whole picture, right? It's not as complicated as it sounds. It's just a lot of pieces, and you do one at a time. What are the other tools you have to make sure you have? Of course, the special needs trust, because the left-hand trust, which we went through the class, is third-party trust. And the money that you're going to leave for your child after all that work is going to go here. You don't want to undo the work you've done. You want to make sure that you're leaving something there. And if your child has money, it's in that other trust on the right, the payback trust. If you're divorced, how long is a part of it too? If you're divorced and you're in a second marriage or you're not remarried, then you have to put into place that final number. Who's going to contribute? Am I going to contribute? Is my ex-spouse going to contribute? Are we each agreeing to put in half of what the child needs? We have lots of couples who come in and they have an ex, and ex sits into our meetings and says, okay, how can we work together to make sure that this works? and who's going to do what. Right? All right. What's another tool? The ABLE account, right? So the ABLE account is going to provide some of that final money for our child, but we want the special needs trust to fund it. We went through that. I'm just putting down the tools that we need. If you don't have expertise on the ABLE, go back to the ABLE class. But so the tools again are all those pieces that we did here, the special needs trust, which is going to hold the money for your child, and the ABLE account, which is going to be the tool, kind of like the checkbook that's going to let the child have access to short-term money, because the special needs trust holds the big money. All right. Whew. That was a lot of pieces, right? All right, let's pull it together. So now what do you think about your retirement? So did we start out, did you say you thought you'd retire both at the same time? And retire now is different than Social Security, right? Because you might still be working. You could be, let's say that you think you're going to retire at 67 and you may, or maybe you should take Social Security at 70. I would tell you, if you use the Social Security analyzer and somebody has a big number and somebody has a small number, that analyzer will always tell the high earner, wait till you're 70, right? Because you're going to get the biggest amount. And if this person, when you die, this person, the spouse, lower earner will get the big number. Sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's not right here. Sometimes it says husband takes the big number. Well, maybe the lower earner stay-at-home spouse has less, and they should take it at 65, and that's the biggest number. But I will tell you, the person who's going with the biggest paycheck, and sometimes it's equal. Then it's just a matter of saying who is going to retire first and who's going to retire second. And the person who's going to retire first should retire soon enough to get the Social Security for the person who has their pension and everything else bigger to take care of this person. But this person's got to take it 2 years before, because this person has the health insurance. We want to take care of this one. I know I'm going through a lot of nuances, but you're going to be sitting there going, well, yeah, but we're thinking about doing this or that. Okay. So know all the facts. Get all the facts first, because I don't know how you start without that. You got to know what your Social Security numbers are. You got to know what your pensions are, and you got to know if it's going to pay for 3. But based on what we said today, what do you think? Do you think somebody's going to retire at a different age? Did you know anything about Social Security? Okay. It's thinking about the health insurance. Who has the health insurance too? And what kind of insurance does your child need for coverage? So you look at all those pieces and tie them all together. Now, you're going to be really smart after you do this process. You're going to have a few questions. That's what the Q&A for Saturday is. When you put your stuff together and you say, okay, I looked at my stuff, but I got a different number, or I don't even know where to go. I got the 3 pieces. Where do I start? So I will once again tell you the order of things. Go online and get your Social Security statements for yourself, if you're single, and for the couple, if you have it. 2, find out if your pension. Find out about your pensions. Okay, that's a part of planning, but find out if they pay for 3. Do your cash flow statement. Do your net worth statement. Can you do those 4 things in that order? Things will start to be clearer when you have all those pieces. If I'm talking to you and you haven't done those pieces, it feels overwhelming. Do one at a time. Okay. And just like it feels complicated for you, and it gets more complicated if there's divorces. Everybody's got to do it. Everybody's got to cooperate in this process, because maybe the benefits, the health insurance is from the ex-spouse. So it's a team effort, and we got to try to get everybody's data together. Okay. So again, once you get that all done, what needs to change? So once you say, okay, we thought we were going to do it a certain way, you might need to change how your trusts work. You certainly do with the new laws. Maybe you have your trust and your beneficiaries a certain way with the new Secure Act. Maybe it'll change who your beneficiaries are going to be, and your attorney can help you with that. Maybe you're going to change your view of how you take your pension. right? You should take a lump sum. Maybe you thought you'd take a lump sum, but then you give up the benefit for your child with disability if it was available. So after you get all those pieces together and kind of do your first pass on it, say what needs to be updated first, what needs to be updated second. Maybe I need to look at how I'm going to take some annuity checks I have. I don't know. Everybody's got different components to their planning. So it's hard to do for sure what comes first and second. You have to gather your data. You have to understand your mortgage and what it's going to be paid for. You have to understand your life insurance. You have to understand your other children too. You have to know, does anybody else need help? You have to know who are going to be the players and going to make this all work. So you did all this work and you named people who are going to take this all put together when you pass away. Who's going to be the boss of all this stuff when you pass away? Who's going to help, right? So this is the final piece that I always wrap up with because it's so important. You get great help and you have all this stuff done. And then you pass away and you've left the bucket and you've left all the planning, but the team is important because they're going to take it and they're going to be the implementers. You and your team, you're going to have your team and then your child's going to have their team. So your team might be your CPA, your attorney, your financial advisor, working together to make this work. And then when you pass away, who are all these people? So your team, your child's team consists of this. So you have your team and your child's team. You have your financial people, you have your legal people and your accounting people. Your child has to have that and more. And those more people all have to know what you are doing here. They all have to understand it. Okay. I know we went through a lot. Do one step. I don't care what it is for you, but people come out of a class sometimes like, oh, that's all too much to do. I can't even start. Or they do start. And I can only tell you that starting is better than not, right? No matter what we want to do in life. And when I want to get healthy, I got to take my first step. If I want to get my financial health in place, I got to take my first step. Look at should you be funding your Roth versus your traditional IRA? Should you be getting more life insurance? Should you be going to the attorney? I don't know what it is for you. I would say if you haven't got your Social Security records, that should be your first step. So my guilt card process always is, what are you committing to do based on all this information that we gave you today? What are all the pieces? Because today I really wanted to give you all the pieces and give you the concept of how important it is to understand that our planning is different, right? So take out your card and write down your notes, save your questions on one card for our Q&A session. And if you can do this, I would love to have you do this, because my answers to you on all the questions that we've gone through all week will mean much more to you if you've done the things that were on your guilt card for each day. So if you sat in all the different classes for today, if you don't have your Social Security record, get it before the Q&A session. Because you might say, well, I don't know how to read this. Or try to do a rough draft of a net worth statement. And doing helps us find our questions. Okay. So we did a lot of work. I look forward to seeing you at the Q&A. And if you need help, we're here. We always love to help families. We'll try to, on the Q&A, we'll leave codes that you can get access to the planning system if you'd like that. And email me at info@protectedtomorrow.com your thing that you're going to do next related to today's class. And I look forward to seeing you at the Q&A. Thank you. Take care.